Okay, welcome back everyone to theCUBE's live coverage here on the floor at Moscone South in San Francisco, California for AWS Summit 2022. This is part of their Summit conferences, not reInvent. It's kind of like becoming like regional satellite mini reInvents, but it's all part of education developers. Of course, theCUBE's here. We're going to be at the AWS Summit in New York City, only 2 this year. And this summer, check us out. Of course, re:MARS, another event we're going to be going to, so check us out there as well. And of course, reInvent at the end of the year. And Reinforce, a security conference in Boston. So Sarbjeet Johal is our next guest here, CUBE alumni, CUBE influencer, influence in the cloud industry. Sarbjeet, great to see you. Thanks for coming on. Oh, by the way, we'll be at Boston Reinforce, reInvent in December, re:MARS, which is the robotics AI show, and of course everywhere. The Summit here in San Francisco and New York City, the hot areas.
That's cool.
Yeah, great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Okay, I got a lot of data to report. You've been on the floor, talking to people. What are you finding out? What's the report?
The report is actually, I spoke to 3 people from AWS, one higher up guy from the Dr. Casey Tung. He works on inferentia chips, and he gave me a lowdown on how that thing works, and there's a systolic arrays, TPUs, and like a lot of insider stuff.
Like deep silicon chip stuff.
Yes, and they're doing some great stuff there, and of course that works for at scale, and for cloud guys, it's all about scale. If you're saving pennies at that scale, you're saving millions, and maybe hundreds of millions at some point, right? So that was one, and I also spoke to the analytics guys, and they gave me some lowdown on the Glue announcements, how the big data processing is happening at AWS, and how they are now giving you the ability where your infrastructure hugs your demand, so you're not wasting any resources. So that was the #1 complaint with the Glue from AWS. So that was one, and then I did the deep racing race, and my timings were like number 78, so I suck
got
at
some
that.
work to do. You download your machine learning module?
No, I will do that and then play with it, yes,
Yeah.
I will train one.
You got a simulation too.
Yeah,
You get
I will do that in
okay,
simulation,
okay.
yes.
What else, anything jump off the page for you? What's the highlight, if you could point at something? Did anything pop up at you this event with AWS? Was there any aha moment or something that just jumps off the page?
I think it was mainly sort of incremental, to be honest with you, and the one thing...
Nothing earth-shattering.
Nothing earth-shattering, and that at the summit it's like that, like it, but they are doing new announcements like almost every day with new services, so I will go home and read on that. But there are some patterns that we are seeing emerging, and there are some folks very active on Twitter. Mark Andreessen just did very controversial kind of tweet a couple of days back. That was hot.
Was he shit posting again?
Shit posting, yeah, he was shit posting actually. Actually, I saw Corey as well on the floor. Corey and Rodrigo and
did you see Corey's interview with me? We were talking about shit posting because he wrote in his newsletter.
Yeah.
Mark Andreessen and Elon Musk, they're all kind of like, they're really kind of active on Twitter with a lot of highly intelligent snarkiness.
They are super intelligent and they know the patterns. They know the economics and technology, super smart guys, and who is in control? That was more from the B2C and social media kind of side of things, where people are controlling the narratives, and who controls the narrative? Is it billionaires? Is it government? We see that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. You've seen the power. I mean, I call it the revenge of the nerds.
Yeah.
Right. You got the billionaires who are looking at the political screw ups that Facebook and others have done.
Yeah.
And by not being clear, and it's a hard problem to solve. I don't really want to be in their seat. Even Andy Jassy is the CEO of AWS. What is he? I mean, he's dealing with problems that, for some people, like would be their worst part of, like they could ever dream of scenario. He's dealing with that at breakfast. And then throughout his day, he's got all kinds of, Amazon's so big, and Apple, and you got Google, and you got the FANG companies. So at some point, tech is now so part of society. It's not just the nerds from California. It's tech is in everything now. So it's a societal impact. And so there's consequences for stuff. And so you're starting to see this force for good that's come from the sustainability angle. You're going to start to see force for good with technology as it relates to people's lives. And we had Mapbox on theCUBE, and they provide all this navigation, and Garrett, the guy who runs that division, he talks about dark kitchens, dark stores, so just they're re-engineering the supply chain of delivery.
Yeah.
Right, so we all been to restaurants and seen people there from picking up food delivery. Why are they going to the retail counter? So dark kitchens are just basically depots for supplying the 10 menus that everyone orders from.
Yeah.
So that's a change of a structural change in the industry, so that jumped out at me. Matt Wood spoke to me about serverless impact to the analytics team, and again, structural change is technical and culture, right? So you're starting to see, to me, more and more of the two themes of some technology change, architectural change, system change, and culture thinking. And we had a 20-year-old guest on here who was first worked at Amazon Web Services when he was 16.
Wow.
Okay? Graduated high school early and went into Amazon. He's like, I love tools. So people love tools. Hardware's coming back, right? So I mean, it's just,
hardware's hot.
this is crazy. What's going on?
It's crazy, actually. Remember the 9-year-old kid at reInvent 2019? Karthik was his name, if I remember. I spoke to him, and it was crazy. He was AWS certified, and kids are playing with this technology in their high schools.
It's awesome.
And even in their elementary schools now.
They can get their hands on it quicker. They don't need to go into a class for a year. They can self-teach, they can do side projects. They can launch a side hustle. They can stand up a headless retail outlet. Who knows what they can do? If you got the Lego blocks, I mean, this is what I love about the cloud. You can really start something fast and then abandon it.
Actually, I think it's all enabled through cloud. Like the accessibility of technology has gone like exponentially, like wildfire. Like once you have access to cloud, just all you need is connection to the internet. After that, you have the VMs. Now you have the serverless. There's zero cost to you, and things are thrown at you. Somebody was saying that earlier here. Like we have said that many times. Like it's like. That's how the drug dealers, sell the drug. Like sniff
First
it,
free.
Free, yeah. First it's free. So they're doing it. Yes.
We say that about the Cube.
And from the, I see cloud from two different angles, like we all do, and like I try to sort of force myself to look at from both angles. There's the supplier side and the buyer side, or the consumer side on the other side, right? So from the supplier side, it's a race for talent to build it, number one. Then number two is race for talent to train them. So we saw the numbers in millions being shown today at the keynote again, and Google is showing those numbers as well, like how many millions they are training, like 25 to 30 million people within next 2-3 years. It's crazy numbers.
Sarbjeet, I got to say, so if I have to look at what jumped off the page for me on this event was a couple things, and this is kind of weird, nuanced stuff, but I'll just try to explain it as best I can. Number one, we're going to see more managed services, like DevOps managed services. As DevOps teams grow, talent is a problem. And Kubernetes obviously is growing, and got to get that right. It's not easy to be a Kubernetes, slinging clusters around with Kubernetes, it's hard. I think that's got to get easier. So I think the path to easy is going to be some sort of abstraction service layer. And I think the smart people are going to have this layer where they'll manage it and then provide that as a service, number one. Number two is this notion of a systems design thinking around elements, whether it's storage or maps for like Mapbox. And around these elements, they have to have a systematic effect of other things. You can't just, if it changes, it's going to have consequences. That's what systems do. So tooling's being built around these elements. And they have to have hardened APIs. That is clear. That people who are trying to be, quote, cloud native need to get this right. And you have to have the tooling in and around the element. And then have APIs to connect and then glue up. So it's interesting. Clearly those things are happening, and multiple conversations, people were teasing that out. And then obviously the super cloud was coming in.
Is there,
Mapbox is basically a super cloud. They're like what Snowflake is for data analytics. They are
MongoDB is another one.
MongoDB's got Atlas. I mean, MongoDB was criticized for years. Doesn't scale. remember the old Lamstack days, they were preferred. They nailed it with the document aspect of data, but they were always getting criticized. They can't scale, and they just keep scaling, but now with Atlas, they're on AWS, it just auto scales. So that's killer for MongoDB, so I think their stock price is undervalued in my opinion, but I don't give legal advice.
Yeah, I think the whole notion of
or financial advice.
The multi-cloud, right? So for a multi-cloud, to kill that complexity of multi-cloud, we have to go to what Dave Vellante and you guys say super cloud, right? Another level of abstraction on top of infrastructure provided by AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, right? So that's where we're going.
Well, Dave and I debate this around, and he bundles multi-cloud in there, and most people think that's what he's saying, but I'm saying it, multi-cloud is a reality. I mean, multi-cloud means you're going to have multiple clouds.
Yeah.
They're just not, you're not sharing workloads across those clouds. It's like, not the same workload. That's not going to yet happen.
Yeah, that's
I run Azure
super hard.
because I have 365, that's it. I run Amazon for everything else, that's kind of the use case. But to me, super cloud is building on top of AWS or Azure where you leverage their CapEx and create differentiated value. It's your own cloud without all the CapEx. But it's got to be like super integrated and the benefits got to be so good that it seems like pennies, to your point earlier.
Yeah.
And the economics to the applications in it are just so obvious. And they got to be so big for the application developer. So that's to me super cloud. And then of course, having the connective tissue to manage the transit around multiple clouds.
Yeah, I think they have it, true, I totally agree with you. But another thing is from having the developer background, I think the backward compatibility is a huge issue in cloud.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of technical debt being built, and I'm hearing that more and more. I think that we have to solve as industry, as like these three main players have to solve that problem. So that's one big thing actually I'm very after, to talk about it and all that stuff. So yeah, it's another thing is, another pattern actually to all the cloud naysayers out there, right, is that those are the people who come from the hardware background. So I've seen another pattern out there. So I'm trying to synthesize, who are these people who bash cloud all the time? I'm pro cloud, of course, everybody knows that.
We know you're pro cloud, we're all pro cloud. We're totally biased, we love cloud.
Actually, no, I've seen both sides. I've worked at EMC, VMware, I've worked at Oracle Cloud as well, and before that I have written a lot of software. A software developer is pro cloud. A typical hardware ops guy or girl, they are pro on-prem or pro hybrid and all that. Like they try to keep it there.
I think, first of all, I have an opinion on this. I think you're right. But hardware is coming back. If you look at how cloud is enabling hardware, it's retro, it's designed for the cloud. So hardware is going to offload, either accelerate stuff and offload stuff from the software guys. So look at Deep Razor, it's hardware, and now it's a car. You got the silicon in the chips, so the chips you're talking about, those aren't chips for servers in the data center, they're just chips to make the software in the cloud run better.
Well, scale.
So scaling, and so I think we're going to see a renaissance in hardware. It's going to look different, it's going to act different, so we're watching this. I mean, you brought up the idea of having a cube hardware box.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
I think it's a good idea. DM me and tell me it's a bad idea or a good idea. I'll blame Sarbjeet for that. But what else have you learned?
What else I have learned, actually, it's basically boils down to economics at the end of the day. It's about moving fast. It's about having developer productivity. Again, going back to the cloud naysayers, is like, why did you build a bike? Remember Steve Jobs used to say that computer is the bicycle for the human mind,
yes.
Right? So cloud is the bicycle for the enterprises. Yeah. It makes them move faster. So I think that's
all right, we're closing down. We're going to hold on until they pull the plug on the cube, literally. Sarbjeet, great to see you on there. Check us out on Twitter. Great event, good to see you, great report. Thanks for sharing. Sarbjeet Johal here on the cube. Taking over our community site, I hear, right? No, you're going to work on
I'm there. I'm always there.
Great to have you on. I'm going to work on some new things with the cube. Really appreciate working with us. Thanks a lot.
I really appreciate you guys giving me this platform. It's an amazing platform. Thank you very much.
It's all right. We'll be back. That's it for our coverage of AWS Summit 2020 here live on the floor. Events are back, hybrid's back. We got the Cube Studios in Palo Alto and Boston. reInvent at the end of the year, but we're going to the summit in New York City in the summer. We got Reinforce in Boston, the security conference, REMARS, which is the Robotics AI ML conference, and of course, the big summit in New York and San Francisco were there. Of course, check out thecube.net for all the action. I'm John Furrier, your host, with Sarbjeet here, closing out the show. Thanks for watching.